In the dim glow of an alien sky, where twin suns danced across a lavender horizon, a human male found himself shackled, not by chains of iron, but by words more binding than any physical restraint. His name was Kale, though it felt like a distant memory now, erased beneath the weight of his current reality. The air around him shimmered with unfamiliar scents, metallic, floral, and faintly electric. He stood in the grand hall of what could only be described as an otherworldly palace, a sprawling structure that defied earthly physics, its walls curving impossibly upward into translucent spires that seemed to hum with life. Kale's journey here had been anything but ordinary. It began on Earth, or at least what remained of it after centuries of environmental collapse and societal decay. Humanity clung desperately to survival, scattered across fractured cities and barren wastelands. Yet amidst this chaos, hope flickered in the form of interstellar exploration. A coalition of nations had launched a desperate bid for salvation, a fleet of ships sent out into the cosmos, searching for habitable planets or advanced civilizations capable of aiding humanity's resurgence. Kale had volunteered for one such mission, driven not by heroism but by a gnawing sense of purposelessness back home. Life on Earth offered little beyond struggle and despair. Perhaps among the stars he might find meaning, or so he thought. What followed was a blur of light years and wormholes, until their vessel encountered something unexpected, an alien armada unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. Sleek ships shaped like liquid mercury orbited a massive mothership, exuding both elegance and menace. Communication attempts were met with silence, save for a single transmission, a voice neither mechanical nor entirely organic, resonating through every nerve in Kale's body. "You are trespassing," it intoned, before their ship was engulfed by a force field and dragged aboard the gargantuan vessel. That was when she appeared. She emerged from shadows cast by bioluminescent pillars, her presence commanding yet ethereal. Her skin shimmered like molten gold, catching the ambient light in ways that made her seem almost unreal. Eyes like twin galaxies regarded him with an intensity that froze him in place, while flowing robes of iridescent fabric swayed around her lithe frame as if stirred by an unseen breeze. This was no mere emissary or diplomat. This was royalty, unmistakably regal in bearing and demeanor. Her lips curved into a smile that held equal parts amusement and calculation. "According to this contract," she said, holding up a glowing tablet etched with symbols Kale couldn't decipher, "you belong to me, human." The word struck him like a thunderclap, reverberating deep within his chest. Belong to her. The absurdity of it clashed violently with everything he knew about freedom, autonomy, even basic human dignity. But there was no room for protest, not when the guards flanking her radiated power so palpable it felt like static electricity crackling against his skin. They weren't armed with weapons, at least none visible, but their very forms exuded strength, each muscle rippling beneath scales or chitin-like exteriors that hinted at evolutionary perfection. Kale swallowed hard, his throat dry despite the humid atmosphere of the chamber. What do you mean?" he managed, his voice cracking under the strain of disbelief and mounting dread. She tilted her head, studying him like one might examine a curious insect trapped beneath glass. "Your species trespassed upon our territory," she explained, her tone calm yet laced with authority. "And now, as per Article 372 of the Galactic Accordance Treaty, all members of your crew are forfeit to us. You have violated sacred boundaries, and thus, you will serve." Her gaze narrowed ever so slightly, pinning him in place. "I chose you personally." Chosen. The word echoed in his mind, heavy with implications he couldn't fully grasp. Why him? What set him apart from the others on his ship? Was it random, or did she see something in him? A quality, a weakness, or perhaps potential? Before he could ask, she turned gracefully on her heel, her robe swirling dramatically behind her. "Come," she commanded without looking back, assuming compliance as naturally as breathing. He hesitated, torn between defiance and survival instinct. The guards shifted subtly, their postures tightening, and he realized then that resistance wasn't an option. Not here, not now. With reluctant steps, he followed her through the labyrinthine corridors of the alien stronghold, each step drawing him deeper into a world that defied comprehension. As they walked, the architecture shifted subtly, adapting to their movements. Walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, and floors glowed softly beneath their feet, guiding them forward like some kind of sentient path. They eventually entered another chamber, smaller but no less awe-inspiring than the first. Here, the ceiling arched high above them, studded with crystalline formations that refracted light into cascading rainbows. At its center stood a pedestal, atop which rested an object pulsating with energy, a contract, presumably the same one she'd referenced earlier. She approached it with reverence, gesturing for him to come closer. Reluctantly, he obeyed, feeling increasingly like a pawn in a game whose rules he didn't understand. "This is your fate," she said simply, placing a hand over the glowing artifact. "Accept it." Cale stared at the pulsating document, his heart pounding in his ears. Accept it? How could he accept something so foreign, so absolute? And yet, as much as his pride screamed against it, his instincts whispered caution. Refusing would surely lead to consequences far worse than servitude. So instead of arguing, he asked the only question he could think of, "Why me?" For the first time since their encounter, her expression softened, though only marginally. "Because I saw something in you," she admitted, her voice quieter now, almost contemplative. "Something unfinished." Unfinished. The word lingered in the air between them, laden with mystery and uncertainty. Cale felt a chill run down his spine, though whether from fear or intrigue, he couldn't say. Whatever lay ahead, he realized grimly, would demand more from him than he'd ever imagined giving. As days blurred into weeks, or what Cale assumed were weeks, given the absence of natural time markers aboard the alien vessel, he found himself caught in a strange rhythm of captivity and curiosity. Each morning, or what passed for morning in this alien realm, he was summoned to the princess's chambers, where she awaited him with an enigmatic smile that never quite reached her eyes. Her demeanor oscillated unpredictably between aloof detachment and moments of startling intimacy, leaving him perpetually off balance. She spoke to him in riddles, her voice lilting with melodic cadences that seemed designed to disarm rather than inform. "Your kind thinks itself clever," she mused one day, tracing idle patterns on the glowing surface of a table. "But cleverness is meaningless without purpose." Cale bristled at the implication but held his tongue. Arguing with her proved futile. She possessed an infuriating ability to twist his words into contradictions. Instead, he observed, noting how her golden skin caught the light differently depending on her mood, how her fingers moved with deliberate grace, and how her gaze sometimes lingered on him just a fraction longer than necessary. There was something magnetic about her, an allure that transcended physical beauty. It wasn't merely her appearance that captivated him, it was the way she carried herself, as though she bore the weight of galaxies on her shoulders yet remained untouchable. Yet beneath her composed exterior, Cale sensed currents of emotion that hinted at vulnerability. On occasion, her mask slipped, revealing flashes of frustration or sorrow that vanished as quickly as they appeared. During one particularly tense exchange, when he dared to question the morality of enslaving humans under the guise of treaty law, her composure cracked. "Do not speak to me of morality," she snapped, her voice rising sharply. For a moment, the galaxy-like swirls in her eyes seemed to darken, stormy and turbulent. Then, as abruptly as it began, her anger subsided, replaced by a weariness that aged her immeasurably. "You know nothing of my world," she murmured, turning away from him. These glimpses of her inner turmoil only deepened Cale's confusion. Who was she, truly? Was she merely a tyrant enforcing galactic law, or was there more to her story? More pain, more responsibility, that he couldn't yet comprehend? Their interactions grew increasingly charged, teetering on the edge of confrontation and connection. She tested him constantly, probing his limits with cryptic questions and impossible tasks. One day, she handed him a device resembling a sphere encased in liquid crystal and instructed him to decipher its function. When he failed after hours of fruitless effort, she laughed, not cruelly, but with genuine amusement, and told him, "Perhaps you're not as unfinished as I thought." The remark left him seething, though he couldn't explain why. Another time, she led him to a vast garden suspended within a transparent dome, where plants unlike any he'd ever seen thrived in defiance of gravity. She plucked a flower with petals that shimmered like opals and placed it gently in his hand. "This is life," she said softly. "Fragile, beautiful, fleeting. Do you understand?" "No," he replied honestly, meeting her gaze. "I don't." To his surprise, she smiled, a real smile this time, warm and unguarded. "Good," she said. Neither do I. Moments like these left Cale grappling with conflicting emotions. On one hand, he resented her for her power over him, for reducing him to a possession bound by some nebulous contract. On the other, he couldn't deny the pull she exerted on him, a gravitational force rooted in fascination and forbidden admiration. She was infuriating, yes, but also intoxicating, a puzzle wrapped in starlight and secrets. Despite his growing awareness of her complexity, Cale struggled to reconcile her actions with his own moral compass. How could someone who seemed capable of such depth and nuance justify treating him as property? The ethical quandaries gnawed at him relentlessly, manifesting in sleepless nights spent staring at the luminescent ceiling of his quarters. He wrestled with guilt too, though its source eluded him. Was it guilt for allowing himself to feel drawn to her, even fleetingly? Or was it guilt for harboring resentment toward a being who might, in truth, be as trapped by circumstance as he was? One evening, or what he presumed was evening, he confronted her directly. "Do you even care about what happens to me?" he demanded, his voice rising despite his best efforts to remain composed. "Am I just another acquisition to you, another trophy to display?" For once, she didn't deflect or evade. She regarded him silently, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and measured. "You think I take pleasure in this? In owning you? In bending your will to mine?" She stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her body. "You mistake power for choice, human. Just because I hold dominion over you does not mean I relish it." Her words unsettled him, not because they absolved her but because they hinted at truths he wasn't ready to face. If she didn't enjoy wielding power over him, then why did she continue? What drove her decisions, if not malice or greed? And most troubling of all, did she harbor doubts about their arrangement, just as he did? The questions swirled endlessly in his mind, tangled threads leading nowhere. Yet amidst the chaos, one thing became clear: he was no longer indifferent. Whether it was hatred, sympathy, or something altogether different, his feelings toward her had grown too complex to ignore. And perhaps, he feared, too dangerous to acknowledge. As Cale navigated the labyrinth of his emotions, the alien princess revealed fragments of her world, weaving a tapestry of wonder and dread that left him reeling. She took him to places that defied logic and imagination, vast floating cities suspended in perpetual twilight, oceans of liquid crystal that sang haunting melodies, and forests where trees grew upside down, their roots reaching skyward toward twin moons. Each destination was accompanied by stories steeped in myth and history, tales of wars fought across star systems and alliances forged through blood pacts. Yet beneath the grandeur lurked shadows, hints of darker truths she only alluded to in passing. One day, she brought him to a colossal arena carved into the heart of a mountain. The air inside buzzed with anticipation, crowds of aliens filling tiered platforms that spiraled upward like a living spiral galaxy. Their forms varied wildly, some sleek and feline, others insectoid with iridescent wings, and still others amorphous, shifting shapes that seemed to defy classification. All eyes turned to the center of the arena, where two combatants faced off amidst a haze of shimmering energy fields. Cale watched, transfixed, as they clashed with weapons that emitted bursts of prismatic light, each strike resonating like a chord struck on an unearthly instrument. "This is justice," the princess said beside him, her tone neutral. "A duel to settle grievances. No trial, no appeals, only strength and skill determine the outcome." Cale's stomach churned as he witnessed the brutal efficiency of the fight. One participant fell, defeated but not dead, while the victor raised their weapons skyward in triumph. Cheers erupted from the crowd, echoing through the cavernous space. "Is this common?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. "It is tradition," she replied simply, her gaze fixed on the scene below. "Efficient, decisive, and free of corruption. Would you prefer your Earth's courts, where lies and manipulation often prevail?" Her question stung, not because it was wrong but because it forced him to confront uncomfortable parallels. Humanity's flaws were laid bare here, magnified by comparison to this alien society's stark pragmatism. Still, the spectacle troubled him deeply. Justice, stripped of nuance and compassion, felt hollow, an exercise in power rather than fairness. Later, she guided him to a serene enclave hidden within the palace grounds. Here, time seemed to slow, the air thick with tranquility. Bioluminescent flowers bloomed in rhythmic pulses, casting soft light over pools of water so clear they appeared bottomless. "This is peace," she said, her voice softer now, almost wistful. She knelt by one of the pools and dipped her fingers into the surface, creating ripples that spread outward in concentric circles. "Here, we honor those who came before us, the architects of our civilization, the dreamers who dared to envision harmony among chaos." Kale crouched beside her, mesmerized by the reflections dancing across her golden skin. "Who were they?" he asked cautiously, sensing the weight of her nostalgia. "They were many things," she answered, her gaze distant. "Leaders, innovators, philosophers. But above all, they were builders, of worlds, of ideas, of futures." She paused, her expression darkening. "And destroyers, too. Progress demands sacrifice, after all." Her words hung heavy between them, laden with implications he couldn't fully grasp. Sacrifice. Destruction. The dichotomy unsettled him, mirroring the contradictions he saw in her. Was she honoring her ancestors' legacy, or warning him of its cost? As they explored further, Kale began noticing subtle fractures in the idyllic facade she presented. In bustling marketplaces filled with vibrant colors and intoxicating aromas, he spotted beings huddled in shadowed corners, their eyes hollow and haunted. Laborers toiled under harsh conditions, their bodies augmented with cybernetic enhancements that gleamed unnaturally in the dim light. Children played games that mimicked battles, their laughter tinged with something darker, perhaps resignation, perhaps acceptance. "These disparities, don't they bother you?" he ventured during one such outing, unable to suppress his unease. She glanced at him sharply, her galaxy-like eyes narrowing. "Disparities exist everywhere, human. Even on your precious Earth, did you not witness suffering? Exploitation? Inequality?" "Yes," he admitted reluctantly. But what?" she interrupted, her voice cutting through his hesitation. "Would you have me dismantle centuries of progress for the sake of idealism? Utopia is a myth, a construct born of naive dreams. Reality requires compromise, balance. Some must carry heavier burdens so others may thrive." Her argument struck a nerve, challenging his preconceptions and forcing him to grapple with uncomfortable truths. He wanted to argue, to insist that fairness mattered more than efficiency, but the evidence before him complicated matters. This alien society functioned seamlessly, its citizens united by shared values and goals, yet the cracks beneath the surface suggested a price paid in silence and suffering. Over time, Kale began to notice patterns in her behavior, clues that hinted at motivations far deeper than simple adherence to tradition or duty. She spoke often of her people's history, recounting tales of conquest and resilience with a fervor that bordered on obsession. "We have endured trials that would shatter lesser species," she declared during one such recounting. "Betrayal, invasion, near extinction. Yet here we stand, stronger than ever." "And at what cost?" he pressed, emboldened by their growing familiarity. "How many lives lost? How much innocence destroyed?" Her jaw tightened, her radiant features hardening into an unreadable mask. "Survival has no room for sentimentality," she retorted. "If we had faltered, if we had allowed weakness to dictate our choices, we would be dust, scattered across the void." Her conviction unnerved him, not because it was wrong but because it mirrored humanity's own struggles. The constant tension between compassion and pragmatism, between preserving ideals and ensuring survival. Yet there was something else beneath her words, a subtext he couldn't quite decipher. Was she defending her people's actions, or rationalizing her own? One night, as they stood together on a balcony overlooking the alien cityscape, bathed in the glow of artificial constellations projected onto the sky, she turned to him suddenly, her expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. "Tell me, human," she said softly, almost pleadingly. "If you were in my position, burdened with the weight of billions, what would you do? How would you ensure their future?" Kale hesitated, caught off guard by the rawness of her question. I don't know," he admitted finally. "But I'd try to find another way. A better way." Her lips curved into a bittersweet smile, tinged with sadness. "Ah, The eternal optimism of your kind. Perhaps that is why I chose you. Chose him. The phrase lingered in his mind long after their conversation ended, stirring doubts and possibilities alike. Had she seen something in him, a spark of hope, a reminder of alternatives she dared not consider? Or was he simply a pawn in a larger game, manipulated to serve purposes he couldn't yet fathom? As Kale delved deeper into the alien society, he discovered rituals and ceremonies that unveiled layers of cultural significance and emotional resonance. Among these, the Rite of Luminescence stood out, a sacred event held once every lunar cycle, where participants gathered beneath a dome that replicated the night skies of their ancestral homeworld. The ceremony commenced with a procession of elders clad in flowing garments adorned with luminous patterns, each design representing a chapter in their collective history. As they moved, their garments emitted soft, pulsating lights synchronized with a haunting melody played on instruments crafted from crystalline materials. The effect was mesmerizing, evoking reverence and unity among the attendees. Kale, permitted to observe from the sidelines, marveled at the communal spirit that permeated the gathering. Participants, young and old, approached the central altar, a monolithic structure imbued with ancient inscriptions, offering tokens symbolizing their aspirations and fears. These offerings ranged from intricately carved stones to holographic projections of personal memories, each item charged with profound emotional weight. The princess, presiding over the ceremony, delivered a speech that resonated with themes of continuity and renewal. "We are the keepers of light," she proclaimed, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Guided by the wisdom of our forebears, we illuminate the path forward, ensuring our legacy endures." The culmination of the ritual involved a dance performed by select individuals chosen for their contributions to society. Moving in perfect harmony, their steps generated waves of light that intertwined with the celestial projections above, creating a breathtaking spectacle. Kale watched as the princess joined the dancers, her movements fluid and graceful, embodying the essence of their culture. This act of inclusion underscored her role not just as a ruler but as an integral part of the community, reinforcing bonds and shared identity. Another significant aspect of alien life was the Festival of Echoes, celebrated annually to honor voices silenced by conflict and tragedy. Streets transformed into vibrant tapestries of color and sound, with murals depicting historical events and figures who shaped their destiny. Music filled the air, blending traditional chants with modern compositions, each note carrying echoes of past struggles and triumphs. Food stalls offered delicacies infused with flavors representing diverse regions of their empire, inviting all to partake in a feast of unity. During this festival, storytelling sessions occurred in intimate settings, where elders recounted tales of heroism and sacrifice. Kale listened intently as one elder narrated the legend of the star-forged warriors, beings who sacrificed themselves to protect their world from annihilation. The narrative, rich with symbolism and emotion, highlighted values of courage, loyalty, and selflessness. Tears glistened in the eyes of listeners, moved by the enduring impact of these stories on their collective psyche. Through these rituals, Kale gained insight into the emotional fabric of this alien society. Despite their advanced technology and structured governance, emotions ran deep, woven into every facet of their existence. Love, loss, hope, and resilience formed the core of their cultural identity, transcending individual differences and uniting them under a common ethos. Observing these practices, Kale realized how interconnected they were, not just with each other but with the universe itself, viewing their place within it as stewards of cosmic balance. Yet, amidst this celebration of unity and heritage, Kale detected undertones of melancholy. The reverence for ancestors and fallen heroes spoke volumes about losses endured and lessons learned. Conversations with locals revealed lingering scars from conflicts that reshaped their civilization, underscoring the fragility of peace achieved through hardship. This duality, celebration tempered by remembrance, resonated profoundly with Kale, reminding him of humanity's own capacity for both creation and destruction. Interactions with ordinary citizens provided additional perspectives. Artisans crafting intricate jewelry infused with memories shared stories of inspiration drawn from nature and cosmos alike. Scholars engaged in philosophical debates explored concepts of existence and purpose, reflecting a society that valued intellectual pursuits alongside emotional connections. Children, playing games inspired by legendary quests, embodied innocence intertwined with inherited wisdom. Each encounter enriched Kale's understanding, painting a picture of a civilization navigating complexities similar to those faced by humanity. Their rituals, while unique, mirrored universal human experiences. Rites of passage, commemorations of loss, expressions of joy, all bound together by threads of emotion that transcended species barriers. As Kale absorbed these insights, he found himself questioning not just his role within this alien world but also the broader implications of coexistence among vastly different cultures. The revelation came unexpectedly, like a fissure splitting open the bedrock of certainty. Kale had been granted access to the archives of eternity, an expansive repository of knowledge housed within the heart of the alien palace. The room itself was a marvel, walls lined with crystalline panels that shimmered with stored data, each panel pulsating softly as if alive. As he wandered through the labyrinthine aisles, guided by the princess's silent permission, Kale felt the weight of millennia pressing down on him. Here lay the collective memory of a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity, a chronicle of triumphs, tragedies, and transformations. It was during his exploration of a secluded alcove that Kale stumbled upon a section marked with glyphs unfamiliar even to the princess's scholars. Drawn by an inexplicable compulsion, he activated the interface, and the crystals responded with a cascade of images and symbols. At first, they seemed abstract, patterns of light and shadow dancing across the air, but as he focused, a narrative began to emerge. The archive chronicled an ancient conflict, one predating the current era by eons. It spoke of a rebellion led by a faction seeking independence from oppressive rulers, a struggle that tore the fabric of their society apart. What startled Kale most was the resemblance of this historical account to his present situation. The rebels, much like himself, were outsiders thrust into servitude by forces beyond their control. They resisted not through brute force but through acts of subversion, planting seeds of dissent that eventually blossomed into revolution. The parallels were uncanny, almost prophetic, igniting a spark of recognition within him. Could it be that history was repeating itself? That he, too, was destined to play a role in reshaping the course of this alien civilization? His thoughts raced as he absorbed the implications. If the archives held true, then the princess's authority, her very legitimacy, was built upon foundations shaken once before. Her predecessors had faced challenges not dissimilar to those simmering beneath the surface today. Disparities in wealth and opportunity, whispers of discontent among the lower classes, and the ever-present specter of external threats painted a picture of fragility masked by opulence. Was she aware of these vulnerabilities? Did she fear another uprising, another fracturing of her carefully constructed order? Kale's mind turned inward, grappling with the enormity of what he had uncovered. The realization that he might inadvertently become a catalyst for change unsettled him. He had entered this alien world as a prisoner, stripped of agency and autonomy. Now he found himself standing at the precipice of something far greater, a nexus where past and future collided, demanding action. But what action? Rebellion carried risks too grave to contemplate. Failure would mean not just his demise but potentially the unraveling of everything he had come to understand about this society. Yet, doing nothing felt equally untenable. Ignorance was no longer an excuse, nor was complacency. Every interaction with the princess, every observation of her people's joys and sorrows, weighed heavily on him now. She had shown him glimpses of vulnerability, moments when her mask slipped and revealed doubts lurking beneath her confident exterior. Was she aware of the fault lines running through her empire? Did she recognize the precariousness of her position, balanced precariously between tradition and transformation? Kale's resolve hardened as he considered the possibilities. Perhaps his role wasn't to overthrow or destroy but to nudge, to plant seeds of thought that might grow into something meaningful. He recalled conversations with artisans and scholars, their musings on existence and purpose echoing themes of evolution and adaptation. Change needn't be violent. It could be gradual, organic, driven by shifts in perspective rather than upheaval. If he could inspire such shifts, if he could awaken dormant hopes and dreams within those around him, then maybe, just maybe, he could alter the trajectory of this alien world without plunging it into chaos. But how? The question loomed large, daunting in its complexity. He lacked resources, allies, and influence. His status as a human captive rendered him powerless in the eyes of most. Yet, paradoxically, it also afforded him a unique vantage point. Unburdened by allegiance to either side, he occupied a liminal space where ideas could ferment freely, untainted by bias or obligation. This neutrality, coupled with the trust, however tenuous, the princess placed in him, offered a rare opportunity. As he mulled over strategies, Kale realized that his relationship with the princess was key. She embodied the contradictions of her society, torn between duty and desire, tradition and innovation. Winning her over, or at least earning her ear, might provide leverage to enact change from within. But winning her trust required walking a razor-thin line between candor and caution. Revealing too much risked alienating her, while withholding information jeopardized any chance of meaningful dialogue. The stakes were astronomically high, yet Kale found solace in the challenge. For the first time since his arrival, he felt a sense of purpose, a mission that transcended mere survival. Whether it stemmed from altruism, ambition, or a blend of both, he couldn't say. What mattered was the clarity of vision, the understanding that his actions, or inactions, could ripple outward, affecting countless lives. With renewed determination, Kale returned to the main hall, where the princess awaited him. Her presence commanded attention as always, her golden skin glowing softly in the ambient light. Today, however, she seemed distracted, her galaxy-like eyes clouded with unspoken concerns. Sensing his approach, she turned, her expression unreadable. "You've been quiet lately," she remarked, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Lost in thought, perhaps?" Kale hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "I've been reflecting," he replied, choosing his phrasing deliberately. "On what you've shown me. On your world." "And?" she prompted, tilting her head slightly. "What conclusions have you drawn?" He met her gaze steadily, feeling the weight of unspoken truths hanging between them. "That your society is remarkable," he began, choosing honesty over evasion. "But also fragile. Beautiful, yet scarred by histories you cannot erase." Her lips parted slightly, surprise flickering across her features. "Go on." "There's potential for greatness here," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "But greatness requires growth, adaptation, willingness to confront uncomfortable truths." She studied him intently, her expression shifting imperceptibly. "Are you suggesting I am blind to my own flaws?" "No," Kale countered quickly. "I'm suggesting that even the strongest structures need reinforcement. Sometimes, cracks appear not because of weakness but because pressure builds from within. Pressure for change." For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken implications. Then, slowly, she nodded. "You are bolder than I gave you credit for, human." "Perhaps," he conceded, a hint of defiance creeping into his tone. "Or perhaps desperation makes fools of us all." Her laughter, low and melodic, broke the tension. "Desperation can be a powerful motivator," she agreed. "But tell me, what is it you seek? Freedom? Redemption? Something else?" Kale paused, considering her question. "Understanding," he said finally. "A chance to make a difference, not just for myself, but for everyone affected by the choices we make." Her gaze softened, though her posture remained regal. "Very well," she said, extending a hand. "Let us navigate these waters together, shall we? After all, according to this contract," she gestured toward the glowing tablet nearby, "you belong to me." The statement, once a declaration of ownership, now carried nuances Kale hadn't anticipated. Ownership implied responsibility, stewardship, not just domination. As he accepted her hand, he realized that his journey was far from over. The path ahead promised uncertainty, danger, and perhaps redemption. But whatever lay in store, he was ready to face it, not as a pawn, but as a player in a game whose rules were still being written.